Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I work at Target while finishing my nursing degree. My job is usually simple: help customers, restock shelves, and handle complaints. Yesterday was different. I was working in women's clothing. I prefer it over electronics or checkout. Most shoppers are nice. I can fold clothes and listen to podcasts when it's not busy. My manager doesn't mind as long as I help customers when needed. At 2 p.m., I was fixing a display of summer dresses. Someone cleared their throat behind me. I turned and saw a middle-aged woman tapping her foot. I welcomed her and asked if she needed help. She looked at me like I was dirt. She told me she had been waiting forever, which wasn't true. I kept smiling anyway. When I asked what she wanted, she told me about a blue floral sundress from our weekly ad in size medium. I knew which one she meant. It was popular, and we only had extra small and extra large left. I told her I would check if we had it. I took her to the rack and looked through the dresses. I explained we had no mediums but offered to check our system for more. She started yelling about the dress being in the ad. People turned to stare. I tried to stay calm. I tried explaining that popular items sell out, but she cut me off. She told me she drove 45 minutes for that dress. She said we were false advertisers. I told her I understood and offered to check other stores or show her similar dresses. She refused and insisted on that specific dress in her size. I checked our system on my device. We had none in any store within 50 miles. I told her we would get more next Thursday. She yelled about needing it for a party this weekend. Not next Thursday. She wanted to talk to the inventory manager. Customers were moving away from us. My co-worker gave me a sympathetic look. I said sorry and asked if she wanted to see other dresses. She agreed but wasn't happy about it. I showed her our new arrivals. She looked without interest and made negative comments about them. She picked a dress and asked about fitting rooms. When I told her where they were, she told me to show her because it was my job. I walked her to the fitting rooms and pointed out the empty ones. She told me to stay and help her when she finished. Once she went in, I went straight to customer service. My manager was helping someone. I waited, then told her about the angry customer in the fitting room. My manager said she would handle it and told me to stay at customer service. I was relieved. From where I stood, I saw my manager at the fitting room door. She looked professional while talking to the customer. My manager stepped back suddenly with a shocked face. The door opened and the customer stood there in just her underwear. She was yelling and waving her arms. She seemed to be challenging my manager about what she would do. People hurried away. Parents covered their children's eyes. My manager asked her to go back inside and get dressed so they could talk. The customer bent over suddenly. Something was wrong. She put her hand over her mouth and started throwing up everywhere. While getting sick, she screamed about stomach pain and needing an ambulance. My manager called for help on her radio. She tried helping while staying away from the mess. 2 managers came with cleanup supplies. Someone announced for customers to avoid the area. My manager got the woman to sit on a bench with a Target blanket around her shoulders. Security came, then paramedics and police. They talked to her, helped her dress, and took her out in a wheelchair. As they passed, I heard an officer mention charges for public indecency and causing a disturbance. My manager came to me looking tired. She told me this was a first. The woman claimed food poisoning from our cafe, but security video showed she never went there. The officers thought she might be on something. I asked if she was being arrested. My manager said they were taking her to the hospital first, but yes, she would likely be charged. She told me I handled things well and to take my break. I went to the break room, still processing what happened. 3 years in retail, and I had never seen anything like this. I wondered what party was so important, and if she would attend it from a hospital or jail. I told my roommate the story when I got home. She said I should post it online. She was right. I first moved to this apartment building 3 years ago when I started medical school. The rent was $700 per month, which seemed reasonable for the location. My photography business was just getting started back then. I mostly explored abandoned factories on the outskirts of town. My TikTok had only 500 followers, but now I have 20,000 people watching my urban exploration videos. I use MJ to help with creativity and stress management. Medical school demands long hours of studying, often until 2 a.m. Photography requires a different perspective, which MJ sometimes helps me find. When I moved in, I decided to be honest with my neighbors about my habits. I knocked on each door and introduced myself. The neighbor across the hall was a man in his 40s who also used MJ for his back pain. He appreciated my honesty and offered to share some of his homegrown plants sometime. The elderly couple next door didn't care what I did as long as I kept the noise down after 9 p.m. The upstairs neighbor was a most interesting case. He worked as a lab technician at the hospital and had severe allergies. His apartment smelled like a sterile environment, with special air filters running constantly. He explained that he spent $2,000 on his air purification system. When I mentioned MJ, his face showed concern. He told me he had nothing against users, but strong smells triggered his allergy attacks. He once had to be hospitalized for 3 days after exposure to heavy perfume. I promised to be careful and developed a system. I bought a high-quality bong that minimized the smell. I watched for his car to leave before smoking. I kept air fresheners that were allergy-friendly. We developed a good relationship despite our differences. He would even water my plants when I traveled for photography assignments. I helped him carry groceries when his allergies flared up. We had a respectful arrangement for about 2 years. Then my cat knocked over my bong while chasing a toy mouse. It shattered completely on my tile floor. I had a major photography project deadline approaching in 2 days. I needed to smoke to get into my creative zone, but my upstairs neighbor was home. My research for abandoned locations required intense focus. I grabbed my notebook and a small joint and headed to the public square. The square was huge, about the size of a football field with trees and benches scattered throughout. I found a spot far away from the children's playground and the walking paths. It was a Tuesday afternoon around 3 p.m., and the place was nearly empty. I sat down, lit my joint, and opened my notebook to sketch some ideas. I was deep in thought when a shadow fell across my page. The woman standing there wore an expression of disgust. She looked about 50 years old with perfectly styled hair. She asked what I was doing and called me a bum. I explained I was smoking and asked if that bothered her. She claimed I was poisoning the air of the entire square. I offered to put it out and move elsewhere. When I asked what her problem with MJ was, she made a vague comment about people like me wandering freely. I decided to leave rather than argue. As I stood up, she demanded to know where I was going. I told her I would smoke somewhere else since I was bothering her. That's when she grabbed the joint from my hand. She said the police were coming and I needed to stay. I noticed she was wearing a neighborhood watch badge that looked homemade. I had nothing else on me, so I calmly sat back down. This confused her. Most people would have run away. She asked if I decided to wait. I confirmed that I would. She seemed flustered by my compliance. She pulled out her phone and made a call, despite claiming the police were already on their way. While waiting, I learned her name was Karen from her loud phone conversation. She kept looking at me, expecting me to flee. I just sat there sketching ideas in my notebook. About 15 minutes later, a police car pulled up. The officer who stepped out looked tired. He saw Karen and immediately sighed. He asked what was happening now with Karen. She told him I was contaminating the public square with drugs. The officer looked at me with curiosity. He asked if I had any MJ. I truthfully said no. Karen triumphantly held up the joint as evidence. I pointed out that since she was holding it, it must be hers. The officer laughed. He told Karen he didn't know she used MJ. He joked about arresting her. Karen turned pale. She insisted the joint was mine. The officer explained that the small amount wouldn't be considered a crime in Brazil. He told her this was her 4th unnecessary call this week. He mentioned that false reports cost the department about $500 each time. Karen reluctantly handed over the joint and left. After she was gone, the officer sat on the bench beside me. He told me his name was Officer Rodriguez. He had been dealing with Karen for the past 5 years. She called about skateboarders, teenagers, dogs off leash, and even children playing too loudly. Last month, she made 23 calls to the police. Officer Rodriguez said he understood why I was smoking outside. I explained about my neighbor's allergies. He appreciated that I was trying to be considerate. He advised me about a community garden 3 blocks away that was more private. He said as long as I was discreet and respectful, he wouldn't bother me there. We talked about MJ laws and how they were slowly changing. He personally supported legalization but couldn't say so while in uniform. He shared that his mother used medical MJ for her glaucoma. Before leaving, he warned me to avoid smoking in public areas where Karen might see me. 2 days later, I ran into my upstairs neighbor in the hallway. He noticed my broken bong through my open door. He asked what happened. I explained about my cat and my trip to the square. To my surprise, he invited me into his apartment. He showed me a small balcony enclosed with special filters. He had created it specifically for his friend who smoked cigarettes. He offered to let me use it whenever I needed, as long as I gave him 30 minutes notice. This would allow him to set up his air purifiers properly. I was touched by his unexpected kindness. We worked out a text message system where I would let him know ahead of time. The next week I saw Officer Rodriguez while walking to the store. He asked with a smile if I had anything on me. I smiled back and said no. He told me Karen had been quiet lately. Apparently, she received a warning about misusing emergency services. Each false call could result in a fine of up to $1,000. He asked about my photography, and I showed him some recent work. He suggested an abandoned fire station that would make a great subject. A month later, I completed my photography project and got an A on my medical exam. I bought my upstairs neighbor a box of special allergy-friendly chocolates that cost $25. I gave Officer Rodriguez a framed photo of the fire station he recommended. Karen still glares at me whenever we cross paths in the neighborhood. Last week, she tried to report me for parking my car too close to a fire hydrant. The responding officer was Rodriguez. He measured the distance, which was 15 feet, well beyond the legal limit. He gave Karen another warning about false reports. I continue to use MJ responsibly. I'm always careful about when and where I smoke. I've learned that respect goes both ways. My neighbor respects my choices. Officer Rodriguez respects my efforts to be considerate. And Karen, well, she is still learning that the world doesn't revolve around her. Medical school continues to be challenging, but I'm managing. I never use MJ during hospital rotations or when studying critical medical information. My TikTok channel now features a series on respectful MJ use. It has 30,000 views and counting. I ended up in a fraud investigation while working at a pizza place. This happened back in November of 2019. I needed money for college, so I got a job at a local pizza chain. There were about 6 locations around town. I worked as a server at one of them. Our dining room was getting renovated, so we only did takeout and delivery orders. This was fine with me. Fewer tables meant fewer difficult customers. Our location got a lot of prank calls. We got at least 3 or 4 a day from kids ordering crazy things or giving fake addresses. It got so bad that our manager made a rule. Any order over $40 had to be paid with a credit card over the phone. We also had to report prank callers so their numbers could be blocked. Things were okay until our manager quit in November to work for that famous pizza place with the red roof. Nobody wanted his job because it meant more work with no extra money. So the higher-ups sent our regional supervisor to run our location for a while. Everyone hated this guy. He went on power trips and threatened to fire people. Upper management always said no to his firing requests. He never worked in food service before but kept telling us to cook faster even if it was unsafe. Once, an employee told him the pizza oven roller was getting stuck. This could trap pizzas inside and start a fire. He refused to shut it down. Later that day, a small fire did start in that oven. He refused to help put it out. The worst was how he treated women and people of color. He made bad comments about female employees. Once, he tried to get a black employee arrested because the cash drawer was short $6. That employee didn't even have access to the drawer. I could talk all day about how bad he was. Let me tell you what happened that Saturday evening. We got an online order for a local church. It was huge. 40 large pizzas, 20 orders of breadsticks, and several sodas. The total was about $800 to be paid in cash at pickup. I felt something was wrong right away. I called the customer to explain orders over $40 needed to be paid by credit card over the phone. The customer told me they didn't have a credit card but could pay with a check. This was another problem since our old manager stopped taking checks 6 months ago because of fraud. I told this to the customer, who then wanted to cancel the order. I said that was fine and I would cancel it. This was easy. No credit card was charged, so I just had to pull the ticket from the kitchen and cancel the order in our system. I was going to do that when the supervisor stopped me. He asked what I was doing. I told him about the weird order that wanted to pay by check and how they canceled. His face got red as he talked to me about running a real business and how we should accept all payment types. When I mentioned our old manager's rules, he told me to stop following them. I tried to explain about our fraud problems. He cut me off and told me to stop being difficult because we needed the business. Then he called the customer back and told them we would take their check. He told the kitchen to make all 40 pizzas and the breadsticks. We also had to get 12 2-liter bottles of soda ready. When the customer came in, something seemed off. Instead of someone in church clothes, it was just a guy in a hoodie and sweatpants. Not what I expected from a church representative picking up such a big order. The real problem was the payment. He gave us a cashier's check for the exact amount, but from some organization that wasn't the church from the order. This was a huge problem. I told the supervisor right away. He called me a wuss and told me to get back to work. What could I do? He was my boss, even if temporary. I took the check, put it in the drawer, and watched the customer leave with enough pizza for an army. 30 minutes later, I left work and went back to my dorm. Monday morning, I got a voicemail from the finance department. They wanted to meet about a fake check received for an order that weekend. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what they meant. I met them at the management office and told them everything. I told them how the supervisor made me take an order against company policy. I told them how he ignored the warning signs. I told them how he talked to me when I raised concerns. I also mentioned all our other problems with him. The finance department took my complaint seriously and got human resources involved. They started an investigation and talked to other employees about the supervisor. The final blow came when the finance manager found out the supervisor made bad comments to her daughter at another location. Within a week, the supervisor was fired. We got a new manager who was good and respectful. The company also made stricter rules about large orders and payments. I got a small bonus for reporting the fraud. It helped pay for my textbooks next semester. I first discovered volleyball when I was 8 years old at summer camp. My unusual height made me stand out even then. The coach noticed I could reach the net without jumping and encouraged me to join the youth league. By 13, I was already 6 feet 4 inches tall and dominating local competitions. Scouts started showing up at my games when I turned 16. Now I play professionally for one of the top teams in my country. We placed third in the national championships last season. The prize was $500,000 split among the team. My professional life involves rigorous training 6 days a week. Morning sessions focus on strength and conditioning. Afternoon practices are all about technique and team strategy. We travel across the country for league matches every other weekend. These intense schedules make me value my downtime even more. That's why I started the weekend volleyball games with my family 4 years ago. It began with just my 3 cousins and me at the local park. We'd set up a simple net and play 2-on-2 matches. Over time, friends joined and our group expanded to 12 regular players. We meet every Sunday at 2:00 p.m. when I'm not traveling for competitions. During these casual games, I deliberately hold back. I never jump to my full height for blocks. I serve at half my usual power. I pass the ball gently so others can return it. Teams are picked by drawing numbered cards from a hat. This keeps the selection completely random and fair. We play to 25 points. Best of 3 sets. The winners get bragging rights, nothing more. Everyone enjoyed our casual approach to the game. My younger cousin once scored by hitting the ball with his head. Another time, my neighbor performed a dramatic dive into a mud puddle for a save. We laughed for weeks about that one. No one kept track of wins or losses from week to week. This perfect balance lasted almost a year until the newcomers arrived. My cousin invited two girls from his university volleyball team to join us. Both played competitively in the under-21 league and had earned regional recognition. One was a setter known for her precision. The other was an outside hitter with a powerful spike. They arrived at our Sunday game wearing professional knee pads and specialized volleyball shoes. The rest of us played in regular sneakers and casual clothes. Their first Sunday, they seemed nice enough during introductions. They brought a regulation volleyball and a measuring tape to ensure the net was at the proper height. We normally didn't bother with exact measurements. They insisted on adjusting the net up by 4 inches. No one objected because we wanted them to feel welcome. The game started normally, but things changed after the first few points. They began calling out minor infractions that we usually ignored. They insisted on proper rotation positions. They tracked the score obsessively. They celebrated each point with elaborate team handshakes. Our casual fun game was turning into something much more serious. The following week, the tension increased. They arrived 30 minutes early to warm up properly. They brought a whiteboard to diagram plays during breaks. They started critiquing other players' techniques. My oldest cousin was told his serve wasn't regulation. My neighbor was criticized for her improper passing form. Everyone became uncomfortable, but no one wanted to cause conflict. The third Sunday was when things finally boiled over. The random team selection put the two girls and 4 of our better players on one team. I ended up with 5 players who played for fun and had minimal experience. The game began with their team quickly taking an 8-0 lead. The two girls high-fived after every point. They began targeting serves at our weakest player, my cousin's girlfriend, who had only played twice before. She became visibly upset after missing 4 returns in a row. That's when I decided to play a bit more seriously. I started positioning myself to take most of the serves. I set up clean passes to make it easier for my teammates. I blocked more effectively without fully extending. Our team slowly closed the gap. The score reached 15-16 in our favor. Their team called a timeout. The two girls huddled with their teammates, looking frustrated. When play resumed, they began contesting everything I did. One claimed I touched the net during a block. I told her I was at least 6 inches away. She insisted the point should go to them. The other said I stepped over the center line. My cousin, who was watching from the sidelines, confirmed my foot never crossed. They called 4 more violations on me in the next 5 points. After the 7th bogus call, I finally spoke up. I asked if they would prefer I play at my actual level instead of holding back. Everyone except the two girls encouraged me to show my skills. My cousin shouted that he'd been waiting months to see me go pro on the court. The two girls looked confused by this comment. I decided to stop restraining myself. On the next play, I jumped to my full height for a block. The ball ricocheted off my hands directly to the ground on their side. Their team looked stunned at the force of the deflection. On my serve, I unleashed a jump serve traveling 110 kilometers per hour. The ball landed untouched in the back corner of their court. For the next point, I moved from the back row and executed a spike from the 3-meter line. The ball hit the court with enough force to bounce over the park fence 20 feet away. One of the girls demanded to know what was happening. My cousin explained that I played professional volleyball nationally. He mentioned our team had won bronze in last year's championship. He pulled up my player profile on his phone showing my statistics. My vertical reach of 362 centimeters was highlighted. My average spike speed of 120 kilometers per hour was listed. The girl's face showed a mix of embarrassment and surprise. The game ended quickly after that. My team scored 10 straight points with me rotating through all positions. Some points I served directly for aces, others I set up teammates for easy spikes against their blocks. A small crowd of park visitors gathered to watch the display. A few even recorded videos on their phones. After the final point, everyone was silent for a moment. Then my cousin started laughing. Soon, everyone joined in except the two girls. One of them complained that no one told them I played professionally. My neighbor pointed out they never asked about anyone's background. The other girl claimed I was sandbagging to make them look bad. My oldest cousin reminded them that I had been holding back for months with everyone else. He explained our Sunday games were about fun, not competition. That evening, I received a text from one of the girls. She apologized for turning our casual game into a competition. She admitted she had been trying to impress everyone with her skills. College tryouts were coming up, and she was feeling pressured to perform. I understood her situation better after that explanation. The next Sunday, the two girls returned with a different attitude. They brought snacks to share with everyone. They suggested we play some silly volleyball variants like one-handed and sitting volleyball. The tension from previous weeks melted away. We returned to our original purpose of having fun regardless of skill level. 3 months later, both girls made their college team. They credited our casual games with helping them remember why they loved volleyball in the first place. I've been playing volleyball for 15 years now. Professional competition fills one part of my life with discipline and achievement. Our Sunday games fill another with connection and joy. Both are valuable in different ways. Every Sunday at 2 p.m. you'll still find us at that same park. The net might not be regulation height. The teams are never balanced. But the laughter is always genuine. And that's worth more than any professional trophy on my shelf. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.